the people who are more financially challenged bear the cost of water and utility costs. And some of the costs are higher at the further out you go. And I think the community may need some understanding and some explanation of why that is happening. And I was doing my study and I realized that water has been used for firmament, flooding, fire, and for cognitive functioning. And in this legislation for number 549, 2024, we're not talking about water here, we're talking about AT&T. I want you to make sure that when you do this legislation, that AT&T gives you a clear understanding that there are no hidden fees in their contract with you, because many times in telephone communications with AT&T, they tell you this one thing and then you come up with bills, extremely high bills after the fact that they don't tell you about. And I don't want them to deceive our city and have hidden fees. The 550-2024, the renewing, repairing, and replacing of various water mains in 2025 and 2026, would you please make it clear, I'm going to leave, so you do what you do. Make it clear what communities will be affected by this, how it will impact the poor, the working middle class, and the poor, and who will bear the burden of the finances for these repairs, renewing, and replacing of various matters. And then also, I always tell you, when you're making this, all of these legislation processes, that you have on your agenda, please consider the homeless, the disabled, and the senior citizens. I pray that you have an opportunity to bring some young people to the table, and also just work on, if you can find a way to also include those who are in transition from either homelessness or mass incarceration through your processes, to make it more financially economical so they don't end up homeless and incarcerated again.
We always do.
Thank you
Preacher.
so much.
All right?
And if you
Right
have
on
any-
time.
You have any questions for me?
We do
Feel free
not.
to ask. And if you need me, I'm at 216-548-0820. Have a great day, and I hope we can get rid of the idea of the angry people, and they will learn how to come and talk to you.
All right, we
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll for the legislation?
Casey.
Present.
Spencer. Present. Bishop. Ray. Harsh. Here. Kelly. Valencia.
We don't have a quorum at this time, so at this time I'm going to gavel out and take a 5-minute recess. All right, the 5-minute recess became a 1-minute recess. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll for a second time?
Casey.
Present.
Spencer. Present. Bishop. Here. Ray. Harsh. Here. Kelly. Valencia.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a call.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Clerk. Just a reminder to committee members, I sent out plenty of notice and reminders. I do like to gavel in on time. If we could please keep that in mind for future committee hearings. Director, you want to come up here? Today's hearing is legislation first, and then a follow-up on the CPP rates that we'll be hearing also again next week. So, Director, any opening comments before we get going?
No, thank you, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning. Ordinance number 549, 2024, by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts with at and T Corp. For professional services necessary to add new hardware, network, and telecommunication services for the various divisions of the Department of Public Utilities for a period of 3 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. As I'm hopeful that you're aware, the Department of Public Utilities has a long-standing relationship with at and T. All of our telecommunications infrastructure is through at and T, and including the plants and the outlying entities, all of the beyond just the call, the telephone lines. There is a lot of communication hardware associated with what we do every day. What we're hoping to do with this piece of legislation is to upgrade, consolidate, and standardize the phone system and network among all of the DPU divisions. The current contract with at and T does not allow for a lot of these upgrades, which are outlined in the executive summary. We're anticipating it to take about 3 years and cost approximately $3.3 million. Our effort is to reduce the long-term costs of our telephone and network connectivity charges through at and T, and also make sure that we have the state-of-the-art industry standard communication and network to provide for our customers. So we anticipate to be a 3-year contract to upgrade with a number of services that again are outlined on the executive summary. Recommend or requesting approval.
Director, is this a direct award or is this going out for bid?
It is a direct award, Chairman. at and T is our existing telecommunications contract. We do have a contract. It's more of a master service agreement with at and T for all of the services that they provide to us. But these services are not specific to that. The big thing is when you add a new service, existing service has to maintain. So while a majority of those outlined on the executive summary are proprietary to at and T, there are a couple that would lend themselves to go out to bid. However, it would have to take down that section of existing communications in order to implement the new system, which we're not willing to risk at this time. So it is a direct award based on a master service telecommunications contract with at and T that's been going on for a number of years. Back to SBC Global Services. I mean, it's a long time relationship that we're looking to add new services in to address today's telecommunications advancements.
And what's the one-time non-reoccurring NFC cost of $127,500 for?
So the NFC cost is the near field communications. It's a one-time cost for the devices. So when we sync a lot of our and Mark Lasik, the chief of IT, is here, can get into the specifics. But when the data is synced, the near field communication, the NFC, is a license. So it's a one-time cost to update these handhelds or these wall mounts or these desktop communication devices to transmit data between. And it's primarily at the plants when you have all kinds of instrumentation that needs to talk to each other for compliance and for the delivery of a high-quality service. But that's what it's reflected in the executive summary as a one-time cost of approximately $127,000.
All right. You heard the Reverend Pinkney. You don't anticipate any additional hidden fees in here, do you? Is everything spelled out pretty?
It
Cut and
is
dry.
in the existing, well, the master service agreement as currently outlined is a little fluid by way of services. That doesn't include this, but when we implement these new services, it is by the level of participation, by gigabyte, by amount of data that can transfer through, and that is the cost. There are no hidden costs or additional administrative fees in at and T's contract with us.
All right, one last question for me. Do we know why this CSB participation was waived by the OEO?
So at and T and our existing relationship, the technology, it's all by their staff or their field staff. So it doesn't lend itself to have a certified small business subcontractor. at and T has the technology, installs the technology, maintains the technology, and trains us on the technology.
All right, any questions on 549?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
49, 2024. Do you have anything? Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is pertaining to AT&T. You've indicated, Director, that you have a, I guess it's your department, or you or whoever, has a close working relationship with AT&T. And what I'm trying to find out, just that, in light of some of the problems we experienced during the crazy storm that we had in August, what's your thoughts? Were they responsive? Were they not? Because I'm still dealing with issues out there as it pertains to damage pertaining to Spectrum and AT&T lines or a pole. So I just want to hear what your opinion is of the working relationship.
Thank you, through the chairman, to the council member. The working relationship is good, as we have presented multiple times throughout the service area. We did lose power at outlying facilities, and backup generation immediately kicked in. This is for the telecommunications side. We never lost comms with any plant or outlying entity. The substations that were affected also have AT&T lines.
Yes.
And in some instances, we did have minor interference, but they were very responsive.
Okay.
In terms of getting there and getting it fixed.
So when you're turning in, when council members are turning in, because I direct everything to Commissioner Danielson.
Correct.
As it pertains to the poles, damaged wires, et cetera. So the response from him to AT&T has been relatively good? Is that what I'm hearing?
Chairman and the council member, yes.
Okay, that's what I need to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple questions. I guess I never really thought about this. Do we pay, through the chair to the director, do we pay monthly bills to AT&T as well for our different plants and operations?
Chairman and the council member, we do.
We do. And so through the chair to the director, this has nothing to do with our standard monthly service.
Chairman of the council member, that's correct. I mean, we're going to pay, these are upgrades that will hopefully, after these 3 years, reduce those monthly, because just in the division of Cleveland Public Power, and you'll see it here in a couple of weeks when we do our budget. I mean, the telephone costs have gone up and now are incrementally moving back down by way of licenses, by way of how many lines we have. So it's something we continually monitor, and we have to get under control. And what our hope is that with these new services, we no longer rely on some of the old services that are now expensive, because everybody's migrating to these newer services. So our effort is to long-term reduce those monthly bills for our customer.
Okay. Through the chair, do we need landlines in our power plants and water treatment facilities so that if the power goes down and we lose internet service, we can still pick up a phone and call from one side of the city to the other?
Chairman of the council member, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Through the chair, is AT&T our internet provider primarily for utilities?
Yes. Chairman of the council member, yes.
Okay.
Because the ADE is a dedicated Ethernet fiber-based point-to-point, so that, and then the SCADA is also, that's primarily for CPP, the supervisory control, more data. It's all kind of in the same envelope.
Okay. That's all my questions, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harsh. Seeing no other further questions, ordinance number 549, 2024 stands approved. Thank you very much. Ordinance number 550, 2024, by council members Casey and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of renewing, repairing, and replacing various water mains in 2025 and 2026, and authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. This is our annual request for authority to replace the water mains in 2025, 2026. As council hopefully is aware, in January of each year, you get a letter outlining our 5-year water main replacement program in the city of Cleveland and outline what projects are listed for 24, 25, 26. That will come again in January, and Margaret Jackson does have the letters from January of 2024. We do not have them for 2025, 26, but we work hard to remain consistent with that 5-year plan. So if you were to look at your information for '24, it would identify '25. No major variations from that in this, approximately $10 million in the city of Cleveland to continue to address our 1,300 miles of distribution mains, 16-inch or smaller, with an average age of 67 years old.
On our tablets, Madam Clerk, do you have the list of what's being replaced?
So I did ask Margaret to bring the letters
Did it-
from
Yeah, is the
2024.
letter, is it
It's not.
It's
It's
not
not on the
tablet.
tablet. I asked her to do it
Chairman, I have a
yesterday.
question.
Sorry.
All right. Also, in section 4 of the legislation, it says the costs and improvements and other expenditures authorized shall be paid in fund number 52SF001 and from the funds or funds to which are credited the sale from the proceeds of future bonds, the issue of the purpose, RSQ 2022 and RL 2024-35. Should that be RLA? Isn't RL?
So the ordinance was written before we closed the bond deal for Cleveland Water. So I do have a sub-fund if you wish to put it in there.
So the question is, if we just do RL 2024-35, I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that may be CDGB dollars, right? I think RLA is,
Oh, I don't know, Chairman.
yeah,
Oh, boy.
uh-oh. Madam Troy?
Chairman, the RL is something that we use in our accounting system. If we have funded at least partially, it is an RL. If there's no funding whatsoever, when we start the process, it goes as an RLA. So it's just a prefix for us to be able to track it in our accounting system.
Okay, so if we're doing RL, right, and according to Troy, that means there's already funds that are there available, so we already have the dollars, the bond money available for this project?
Some funds are available.
Some funds.
Not the full amount.
So where would the RLA come from then?
If there is no funds available, typically utilities uses it if we're trying to get ahead of our next year's budget. So if we were bringing you something this year that we had no funds starting and we want it to be in the first quarter or first half of 2025, we would start with that if we had no funds available.
Okay, so we're safe to just go with the RL and not an R. I just want to make sure we're not appropriating somebody else's money for. I know they don't let us, but I just want to make sure this isn't a typo, is basically what it is. You try all the time to spend other people's money, but they won't let you. All right, and this is a million?
10.
They got the certificate of funds wrong. I thought it was 10.
I don't think that's us.
It is our ordinance. It says 1,060,000.
Yeah, but I don't know when May 28th is.
I don't know what May 28th is either. Yeah, I'm not chairman of the.
And in the
certificate of funds reflects a contract that was signed on May 28th, 2024 with a process of collection to the credit of that is incorrect. This is what we anticipate to be at least $10 million in water main replacements
Correct,
in
and
2025-26.
that's what I thought, but in the legislation, it doesn't have a dollar amount on it either, and then that's only got $1 million. So I don't know, we can't correct that.
Chairman, if the committee is supportive of the ordinance, I will ensure that it is corrected before we visit the Finance Committee, or I would certainly defer to the committee. I didn't unfortunately write that.
I realize that. Any objection of that being corrected prior to finance?
No, I have no. But I do have a question.
Good? All right. Please just make sure,
Yes,
that's a $9 million difference.
understood. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, any questions on 550, 2024?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Palense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the director and to the commissioner. What is the criteria that you determine that this street needs to get a new water line and this street doesn't? So tell me what the criteria is.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, thank you. We have multiple criteria
Right.
that we use. The most important criteria, the one that gets the most weight, is water main breaks.
Okay.
The frequency of breaks, that's the highest criteria. We feel if it's breaking too frequently, that's poor service we're delivering to the customers. There are some other criteria we take into account. There may be scenarios of low fire flow on the main. If it's a tuberculated 6-inch main
Yes.
and insufficient fire protection, we take that into account. Now we also take into account the presence of lead service lines. Everything else being equal, the more lead service lines on a main, we'll score that a little bit higher to increase getting lead out of the system as we
Yes.
do that. Those are the primary. Also, occasionally, rarely, but occasionally, water quality problems can factor into it.
Okay.
Where replacing the main would take care of that problem.
Okay, and, and I appreciate that because that's often asked of me at neighborhood meetings, why this street gets a water line on it and this street doesn't. So that's been my response. Number of complaints, number of water breaks,
Yes.
ongoing service problems, delivery of water and water pressure. And I can recall many, many years ago, when we implemented this program, there was a severe fire in then Councilwoman Fannie Lewis's ward, and we could the fire department could not adequately fight the fire because the way it was explained to us is that with the apparatus that we had, we actually sucked the lines dry because they had inadequate, they were full of tuberculin, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't know if my memory serves me, like 6 houses burned down in a row. It was a horrible experience. I forget what street it was on, but I'll never forget that. And so then we embarked, administration at that time, and I don't know if that was Voinovich. I'm trying to think, maybe because Alex, you've been around a long time. I'm trying to think who the mayor was at the time, where we embarked upon this plan to replace water lines and do the relining and all that good stuff. But I want to pose to you something different, and not only to you but to my colleagues at the committee. Installing a water line, a new water line, is a very costly proposition. And then once we install the new water lines, we are resurfacing the street.
Correct.
Which we should, and that's something I and others advocated for a long time. But where I would like the administration to take a new look-see or new spin, and specifically I'm looking like at Holmes Avenue right now, that is undergoing this process due to all the water leaks that we've experienced. I have about 5 or 6 vacant lots on the street where there were once homes that were taken down. And I am working with potential developers to build new houses there. This is what I'm proposing to the administration. That as we put the new water lines in on the street, and there are empty lots, that we automatically install the new taps in the new pipe, so the street does not have to be reopened. It's a no-brainer. You're putting the new water line in, you're putting new taps in already. Why not put the taps in on the vacant lots? So as new homes are going to be constructed in our city, again, we don't have to open the street. The tap is there already. We run it to the tree lawn, as we're going to do to all the rest of the houses on the street that are still there. And so I've proposed this to the engineering. I'm trying to think who I spoke to just recently. The former director of MOCAP. Who is that? I can't think of his
Rick
name.
Switowski?
Sprantz.
Sprantz, Matt
Yeah,
Sprantz.
I just proposed it to him, and he said, you know what? It makes sense And so I'm laying it out, because again, it's not gonna be that much of an additional cost, but what I'm saying is then we don't have to open the street, and we can save developers that tap-in fee, that tie-in fee. So all I'm just saying, I think we got to start thinking out of the box, because, you know, I was thinking about when I was on Jenny and Councilwoman Spence's ward on West 83rd, and I'm thinking about all these other streets that we're starting to see new housing construction. I'm getting Habitat putting up houses, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, the tap is so costly for these developers and people who want to build new homes. Why, when we already got the street open, we're putting in the new water line, it's there, let's put the taps in. So I want to pose that to you.
Chairman of the council member, it is something that we've talked about. I mean, there is the integrity of the main that we have
Yeah.
to consider, the amount of vacant lots that we're running new
Yeah.
taps to and the costs associated with it. But those costs, again, don't come to the Division of Water. That when
Okay.
you want a new tap, and we've had the conversation a number of times, I mean, to get a new water account with Cleveland Water at a previously vacant or never developed, the fees associated with, from our end are very reasonable. But you're right, they have to hire someone to dig into the street or into the tree lawn and run a new tap. But something that we are taking a look at and we will continue to explore, but certainly appreciate the comments. Depending on the number, 3 or 4, right?
I've got 5.
Right. I mean, those are not, and this is a small part of the distribution mains that we have in the city. So
Right.
it's not the answer, but it's certainly a piece of a solution that we're open to discussing.
But what I'm saying through the chair to you, Marty, because you've been here a while, too, we wait so long to get a street resurfaced. Forget about a new water line. We wait so long to get a street resurfaced, and then here we go. Then we're going to get it we're going to get another utility
appreciate
cut put in, or 5 utility cuts put in. When that tap, if we put the tap in now, we don't have to worry about that. And all I'm saying, I think we got to start thinking out of the box. We got to start thinking smarter and not harder. But, you know, let's put the taps in. Tell me what it costs to put a tap in when we already got the street open up and we're already doing it, putting taps in up and down the street.
Right. We're happy to do that exercise for 2025. Before we do a main replacement in 25, we will.
Well, I'm saying they're doing Holmes Avenue right now. And I said to Sprance, let's do it right now, so I don't have to have that street reopened. Because I'm talking to Habitat about doing houses there.
Unfortunately, Mr. Sprons didn't bring it to the commissioner or me, but we will
Okay.
go back and have a conversation.
Okay,
with-
because I don't think they're going to put the taps in right now. So let's figure out how to get this done. I mean, I got to get, I'm going to get new houses built on that street. And I don't want to see the street reopened after I waited all these years, first of all, to get the water line in, as the commissioner knows, because of ongoing problems there. Now I get the water line, and I want to have a nice road surface, but it's going to be cut up because they're going to put the new houses in there sometime. So to me, it's just, let's start thinking differently around here. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that point,
May I,
Councilman
Councilman?
Harsh?
Yes.
Through the chair, if you run a new main down a street between intersection A and intersection B, and on that street are 50 parcels, 25 on both sides, but there's only 40 houses, what do you do for the 10 parcels that don't have a house? Do they get taps or do they not get taps?
They do not.
Yeah.
I agree with Councilman Polensek that we should put the taps in if there's the parcel.
If it's a buildable lot, we should be
If it's
putting a
buildable.
tap in.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
All right. Are you done, Councilman Polensek?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I'm not going to give up on Holmes Avenue now. I'm just telling you right now. I'm going to be on you guys like white on rice. I want those taps going in there.
Appears
Okay?
we have an employee that should have brought it to
Thank
my
you.
attention.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm following my colleague's line of questioning about criteria for replacement, and I wanted to also inquire, in addition to breakage rate, service issues, things like density of lead service line replacement, another one that has been an interesting puzzle to solve for is if there are other major projects going on. So I'll give 2 examples. One is just a large-scale street resurfacing. Lake Avenue is an example in my ward that years in the making, a major street resurfacing, and then we had to go back, and there was a lot of water main breakage challenges. But I have another one coming up, which is Baltic Avenue. Water pollution control is going to dig up all of Baltic Avenue in order to do their sewer line work. And anecdotally, I've heard of water issues on Baltic too. So that's more just stating I will follow up through the chair with you, Director, about Baltic Avenue. But I'm wondering the degree to which, I think what in part council is interested in avoiding is us doing a major infrastructure problem, a street being pristine, resurfaced, and then you have to go back in and make cuts in the street again. So wondering, so would coordination with other major projects, either now or in the future, be an additional criteria for which streets get water line replacement, water main replacement?
Chairman of the council member, we do coordinate heavily with all other projects, but the criteria are the criteria. We have new pipe that's never broken before that breaks, right? And what we don't want to do is remove good pipe that can last 50 years with, so it's not perfect by any stretch, but we do coordinate heavily with, obviously with WPC, NURSD, any other utility doing work and MOCAP and streets to do the very same analysis that was outlined. And if it's warranted, we do it because that saves our customer a tremendous amount of headache, but resources.
Okay, sounds good. And then, Mr. Chair, I will just say that I know that the anticipated 2025 main replacement streets were distributed to the committee just now, and I regret I didn't bring my file with me because I do have the 5-year plan at home in my file because it's been provided to us. My question through the chair would be, each January when this is updated, just to reflect any new data that's come in about breakage rates or other information, how much do we expect the plan to based off of how much does the 5-year plan evolve to reflect any issues that come to light that may not have been known previously? Through the chair.
Through the chairman of the council member, it does change, and I believe it changed in your ward 2 years ago. And that the analysis happens every year, right, on the break rates and all of those criteria. So when a street experiences multiple failures in a short period of time, we know we have a problem, and it gets evaluated in totality. But we put a lot of work into the 5-year plan, and it's important because once you add one because of extensive break, we have to be able to justify it because one moves off. So it's a conversation that we have had and will continue to have, but we do not have the expectation of a dramatic change in the 5-year main replacement plan.
Councilwoman, I would add, I think the main thing that does happen is we may change the priority. You know, it's not so much dropping one, but a project needs to move up for some reason, coordination with something else, for example. We may have to push another street back a year as a result because of something like that. That occasionally happens in the program.
Okay. And then just for the good of the order, since lead service line replacement came up, I think the public, many members of the public are aware that the Biden administration committed to eradicating all lead service lines within 10 years, I think it is. So I anticipate that will be something of great interest that this committee will discuss in the future.
Director, would
So-
you like to tell the councilwoman what happened yesterday?
Oh,
Yesterday. Well, recently the US EPA did announce the updated lead and copper rule, which had additional requirements on a water system. So it was 900 pages. We're still going through it to fully understand what the expectation is. And yesterday, the assistant administrator of the US EPA was here on very short notice to look at a current lead service line being replaced. So we did have an opportunity to have an audience with the EPA yesterday. I anticipate we will have several more conversations with them as we develop the plan to meet and exceed the current lead and copper rule that was just changed 2 weeks ago. So, but council will be fully, I mean, we can't do it without you. I mean, it's going to take money and a lot of it.
And I would have to say that the assistant administrator was overly impressed at the work of water when he was out yesterday over on Brookside Avenue. I felt bad for Akron because they had to follow us, and there's no way that they could live up to the standard that we set. Any other questions on 550? Yes, we do. We have to bring, Director, if we could bring Troy back to the table, please. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Troy, did we learn anything about RL or RLA?
We did. So in the accounting system, waters is RLA, and it has, so the prefix is RLA, let's say 1, 2, 3, and CDBG has an RL that has a legislation request that is RL 1, 2, 3. So there's a mix-up on the numbers, so we will get that corrected for you today.
So do we need to amend this to say RLA?
I believe the ordinance, it's.
The ordinance, this one calls for RL. I was under the impression
no,
that
ours would
RL.
be RLA.
Right, RL is community development, RLA is water.
In this instance, that is correct.
We need to amend this then to say
Yes.
RLA.
Yes.
All right. Just in section 4, line 5, it should read RLA 2024-35.
Excuse me, Chair, I have a question.
And I believe we have an amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to make an amendment to, in section 4, the last sentence, replace RL with RLA.
All right, we got a motion, a second. We have any discussion?
Yes.
Second? Discussion?
I
Go ahead.
don't know what a RL or RLA is.
It's a code that is used through finances, and every department has their own number. In this case, RL is referring to community development. The RL is the community development's our number, and waters is RLA. So all we're doing is taking the RL and putting it to the RLA.
Spend their money.
Unfortunately, we cannot just spend their money.
We wish we could
will-
spend it.
RL stands for Request for Legislation. RLA stands for Request for Legislation Administrative, which is so that we can start the legislation process before the money is assessed.
Okay.
All right, any other discussions on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then, Director, you will have the certificate of funds definitely corrected?
That's correct,
Before it
Chairman.
comes to finance?
That's correct, Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Then ordinance number 550, 2024, as amended, stands approved. Please sign up. Before we move to the next one, Councilman Harsh.
Through the chair to the director, could we get the cost breakdown of how much a tap costs when we're installing a new main per tap? Is it 100, is it 1,000, is it 10,000, whatever?
Yes. I mean, we're certainly going to have an additional conversation over this, but we will provide in writing the estimated cost of an average tap on a average distribution main
When it's
in
put
the city of
in
Cleveland.
before, when it's put in during main replacement,
Okay.
not as a special dig.
Yes.
When it's part
And
of
then
the
can you
project.
please make sure that, Commissioner, you work further with Councilman Polensek over on Holmes Avenue, even though it wasn't you guys who dropped the ball, but it may have been dropped somewhere along the line, and we'll just pay for our brother's sins. Ordinance number 626, 2024, by Councilmembers Casey and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more requirement contracts without competitive bidding with Motorola Solutions, Inc. for continued support and maintenance of the Motorola 800 megahertz Project 25 radio system, including but not limited to the purchase or rental of replacement or upgraded radio system equipment for the Office of Radio Communications Administration, oversight and regulation of the city's radio communications system under the Department of Public Utilities for a period not to exceed 5 years. Director.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. The 800 megahertz system needs to be maintained. The Motorola maintenance contract expires in short order. We are looking for authority to re-engage Motorola for an additional, 5 years at an approximate cost of $13.6 million. And as outlined, the Office of Radio Communications, through the Motorola contract and the 800 megahertz system, comprise 11 main sites, 3 repeater sites, 7 dispatch sites, and over 7,000 radio users servicing the City of Cleveland public safety, public service, utilities, sheriff's office, and outside communities who rely on uninterrupted communication 7 days, 7/24, 365. This contract allows us not only to maintain the system, but update the system where necessary. It is critical to the continuation of this important service.
All right, thank you, Director. Director, this is a requirements contract, so there's no certificate of funds required, correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
However, these are 5-year contracts. And going back 10 years, this contract was $9.5 million. Then the one that we're currently on is $11.5 million. And then this contract is going to be for $13.5 million. So it seems like it just increases almost exactly to the penny by $2 million over the last 3 contracts. Let me see here. Yeah, 9.53 million to 11.53 million to 13.5 million. So if this is a requirements contract, and I get that. Any opportunity in the near future to take this out to bid?
Chairman, no. Motorola was in from the beginning. Now we are married to the Motorola product to make sure that the system is maintained. We build in escalators into the contract in the event of if we're required to replace a lot of it. We don't spend that. We don't anticipate spending the full amount, but we budget for it in the event of a major need, like the hotel at the airport coming down. A lot of our 800 megahertz system was on that airport. We had to rebuild, move, and put this contract under a lot of stress to make sure that we accommodated for the emergency communications, not only at the airport, but in that section of the city. So we build that into the contract. We don't, we're not going to spend it.
So of the 11.5 million in the last contract that expires on December 6th, how much did we spend in that contract, do you know?
I do not know, but I can certainly get that to you.
Okay. And I understand it's requirements contract and everything, but it just,
And it's important, not to cut you off, Chairman, but it's important to point out that a lot of this is paid back to the Office of Radio Communications by the users, whether that be another city department or another community. So it is reimbursed to the Division of Public Utilities, Department of Public Utilities.
all right, and then tell us exactly what radios are used here, or what this is used for.
Essentially, the installation and maintenance of all emergency or communications radios at the Department of Public Utilities, the Department of Public Safety,
So this is our,
Public Works, and the manager is here if you wanted additional. The Sheriff's Office. So all radios.
and we charge the county back for the usage.
That's
then,
correct.
right? Okay. I don't want to give them anything in kind. All right. Any questions on 6/26/2024? No? Seeing none, 6/26/2024 stands approved. Please sign up. Six 2024 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more requirement contracts without competitive bidding with Hotch Company Laboratory supplies and chemicals needed for the proprietary equipment manufactured by the Hotch Company with the Division of Water, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Again, without competitive building requirements contract, Director?
That's correct, Chairman. The Division of Water specifically and our treatment processes and our compliance with all of those things that we must comply with. We have historically used HOC components and instrumentation throughout the water treatment process. It has proven to be state-of-the-art, industry leader in those various analysis. The division does about 160,000 tests every year, most of those to comply with EPA rules. They rely upon properly functioning high-end laboratory equipment, handheld testing devices, and wall-mounted cabinet devices at storage tanks, pump stations, remote chemical feed facilities, and the 4 water treatment plants. They do have many pieces of HOC equipment throughout the system, and we're looking to continue to maintain that and upgrade where necessary. Anticipated cost $150,000 over 2 years. Yeah, looking for requesting approval.
How long has HOC been a vendor of ours?
Mr. Chairman, we've used HOC for decades and decades. When we did the plant enhancement program, reinvesting $650 million, a lot of that equipment was competitively bid, and HOC was the winning bid on those things. So now we're obligated to maintain using the vendor. EPA requires the actual supplier, the vendor, if you will, to calibrate these devices to make sure they're accurate. Cannot outsource that to someone else.
All right, any questions on 6/28/2024? Seeing none, 6/28/2024 stands approved. Please sign up.
Do you know what that is?
That's not coming in here. That's for clearing.
Ordinance number 7/16/2024 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of repairing and improving the filters at the Nottingham Water Treatment Plant, authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts to construct the improvement and authorizing the Director to employ one or more professional consultants necessary for the improvements. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. Treatment process at Nottingham includes filtration. During filtration, Lake Erie water passes through the media composed of sand and anthracite. These filters remove dissolved particles and biological matter from lake water. The filter media rests on concrete and stainless steel structures called filter underdrains. The underdrains at Nottingham's
Doesn't say it's
18
any
filters
required
installed in 2002. Some of the underdrains showing signs of failure and must be replaced to preserve the effectiveness of the filtration process. Estimated cost, $20 million. Approximate duration, 5 years after design.
And it says no certification of funds required at this time, in parentheses, RLA. So you say $20 million, and just so that we can educate people, you say $20 million, there's no certificate of funds. You want to explain how that works?
I believe, Chairman, well, it's an anticipated, that's a budgeted amount that we're coming up with based on historically. We have been going through other plants and doing the underdrains. They're tremendously expensive, but there is an assortment of funding opportunities that we would look to get this done, either through the capital program or bond funds that were recently received. But that's how we would anticipate funding this project.
Commissioner?
Yes, Director, if I could add, this is authorizing both the design and the construction. We have to
Right.
go through an RFP process, then design it. We likely won't be on the street advertising for the actual construction for a few years. So rather than tie up money now for a project that won't bid for a few years, the anticipation is to fund it at the time that we go out to bid.
All right, so why are you coming with this, why are you coming to us with this now if it's not going to happen for a few years?
Well,
We need
the-
authority to go out and to design it. We're going to hire somebody to design the improvement first.
And how much is that going to cost?
Typically about 10 to 15% of the total cost of the project.
So how come, I mean, this is a lot, right? We're giving you the authority to do an
It's a
awful.
huge project,
E-
yes.
Exactly, right? So you haven't even went out for design yet, and you want authority to design, build, and go out for bonding all in one piece of legislation instead of just asking us now to go out for design.
That's correct,
And
Chairman.
then coming back to us for funds that will.
Either way,
I mean, the question is, how come you're not just, if it's that many years out, right?
Few
Why
years.
aren't, a few years out, why aren't you just asking us now for for the money to just come up with the design? Then once the design is done, come back to us, show us the design and say, this is what it's going to cost to build now, and now can we have the authority to build?
Yeah, it's your prerogative, Chairman. The design is the design. It's not going to be something flashy. I mean, it's at the bottom of the filtration system that catches the particulate and then removes it from the drinking water. So historically, and this is not our first underdrain project, we do design it and then immediately go out to build because the designers are integral in the RFP for the build. It is a seamless effort. The timing is because of the significance of the project, right? It's not uncommon for these projects to go on for years, but it's our preference to have that design team involved by and through the RFP process in order to make the necessary improvements.
All right, any questions on 7/16/2024? Mr. Polensek, or Councilman Polensek.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and to the commissioner. Why would the system have failed?
Chairman, to the
such a-
council member, the system hasn't failed, but out of the 18 filter underdrains to the filters, we have seen indications of potential failure by way of either corrosion, cracks, it's unnecessarily blocking, it's not taking the backflow when they have
Yeah.
to rinse them out. So it's 22 years old, and it's used 24 hours a day, millions of gallons of water
Right.
through it. So we've identified wear and tear, as has been consistent through the other water treatment plants. Nottingham's just the biggest.
Correct.
So is this, I know the plant pretty well, and my father and my uncle were both laborers out there in the late 40s, worked there to dig tunnels for the Nottingham plant. Is this physically in the plant itself, in the main building?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You're familiar with the filter wing?
Right.
And the filters behind those glass walls, if
Yeah.
you will. And if you see where the water sits in the filter media?
Yes.
You have the 3 feet of sand and
Yes.
anthracite. That sand and anthracite media sits on these under drains. They're about 1 foot tall pieces of metal, mostly, that sit underneath the filters, designed to hold the sand up. And those are the components that are seeing some wear and tear, as the director's pointing out.
Now that you tell me where, that is a major project.
It's involved. It's a lot of labor.
So
You have
that's-
to remove the sand, the media out of every filter to replace those units.
So then what do you do for filtration during that construction process? How is water processed?
Use the other filters, Chairman, to the council member. So it would be staged where all filters aren't done at the same time.
So they're independent, each one is
Each filter is
independent?
independent, as the director points out, a couple at a time we would renovate.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't have to tell you how important processing water is, and I think one of the things that we've always been proud about at this table is what we have collectively done, the council, to maintain and upgrade the water system, our water treatment facilities. And I've long maintained, I've stated publicly, I think we have one of the best water systems in the country. So I certainly want to maintain it. I was just, I was a little taken back by the cost of that. And that's your estimate, or that's based on bids?
But that's our estimate based on, we're currently underway similar construction right now at Baldwin, doing
Oh,
the
okay,
same
so
thing.
you have some
So that
experience.
helps inform us about what this will likely cost.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm here to support it. It's an important facility, important building, and I'd ask that my name be added to it as well. So I here support it.
All right, thank you, Councilman Polensek. Madam Clerk, can you please add Councilman Polensek's name to the legislation? Any other questions? Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the chair, to the director, or the commissioner. As an enterprise fund, you're looking at expenses like this very far down the road, I would presume. Has this been budgeted into are you expecting, how long have you known about this needed repair? Has this been years in the making, something you just kind of decided last month, or how long?
Chairman of the council
This is
member,
thought
at
process.
least 5 years.
5 years?
We were preparing for this piece of legislation, and as the commissioner stated, Baldwin was So incrementally building up to what we now is the big,
Yeah.
under drain specific. But these are consistent throughout the water treatment plants. But we knew Nottingham needed it
Yeah.
at some point, probably at least 5 years ago. And we knew it was going to be expensive.
Okay. And through the chair then, so we have, I think, 4 of these plants?
Correct.
Treatment. Okay. And the other ones are also coming up, or Baldwin's obviously being wrapped up, and now we're looking at Nottingham, or what about the other 2?
Baldwin underway now, Nottingham to come. Morgan's not shown signs of problems yet. There was also part of the plant enhancement program. Crown was done separately. There's no indication of any problems at Crown. So Morgan is a possibility after we get Nottingham behind us.
Okay. And lastly, what's the expected lifespan of this filtration system? Are these supposed to be good for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years?
We would hope at least 25 years out of
25.
this. Yeah. Which by the time we replace these will be close to that life.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Can't become Flint. Any other questions? All right. No other questions. 716-2024 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 717, 2024, by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to employ one or more professional consultants to analyze and recommend safety improvements to process hazards and to provide services to address potential process hazards encountered during maintenance activities for a period or periods not to exceed a total of 2 years, and for additional monitoring, maintenance, and support for a period or periods not to exceed a total of 4 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. This ordinance would authorize the Division of Water by and through Water Engineering and the Division of Safety to enter into professional service contracts with a specialized engineering firm in the control and mitigation of process hazards. So a number of years ago, we implemented the lockout tagout system throughout the Department of Public Utilities in terms of a safety process. When maintenance on one thing is happening, you need to know what has to shut off in order to keep that person safe, that equipment safe, and make sure that those necessary maintenance or improvements happen safely. Also is the confined space assessment and arc flash analysis assessment, all to update, modernize, and digitize the safety process throughout the plants and Department of Public Utilities. What we currently have is a binder. If you have to fix this, you have to go to this binder. It needs to be updated, so we're recommending approval to find that firm who specializes in these safety measures, learn our systems, learn our plants, our confined spaces, where the electrical systems are, to then digitize, make it all digital where you would scan a QR code and it would tell you exactly the steps you have to follow to maintain safety, get the job done accurately and efficiently. So it's kind of the next step in lockout, tagout throughout the Division of Water and the Department of Public Utilities. We haven't done something similar to this since the lockout tagout, which was a lot of going through the plants, identifying, labeling, but that resulted in a binder, right? So we need to review the labeling because new instrumentation has come about. All these new different things have happened throughout what we do. And what our primary focus with the amount of different chemicals involved, the different chemicals stored, the confined spaces, as was just talked about, like a filter under drain when you're down in those. We are seeking approval to go out and to update and modernize our safety protocols throughout the Department of Public Utilities. 2 years anticipated cost, $680,000.
All right, thank you.
With an
And-
additional 4 years of monitoring and training.
And that was my question, right? So, or my thought. This isn't going to get us into a proprietary contract with somebody where we're, like we see in public utilities a lot of times, right? Where only one company provides a certain gear or something specific to water. We're not going to anticipate them coming back recommending somebody or something, and then we have to purchase something from them, and then all of a sudden it's a proprietary, and we can only purchase for them for anything in the near future.
That is not our intention, Chairman. What we're looking at is a specialized firm to come in and assess our certain protocols and procedures and then modernize those and then hand those over to us. But the 4 years additional is for maintenance and additional training in the event of. The amount of components, parts, and storage instruments is significant, that we're looking to just maintain that contract throughout, but it is not our intention to procure any type of proprietary technology to perform this safety. It truly is just continuing on our focus on
All right.
safety.
And 680,000 over 4 years then, correct? Or 6 years?
We believe the work will last 2 years, but then a relationship will exist for 4 years beyond that for maintenance and training, but the costs would more than fully be gone.
So the 680,000 is just for the first 2 years for the,
The majority of it, Chairman, but we're
Right.
hoping to maintain a relationship for those next 4 because of the size and the significance of the shift that we're trying to take in terms of safety.
okay. Any questions on 7/17/2024? Seeing none, 7/17/2024 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 812/2024 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by enacting new section 129.296 relating to acceptance of gifts, sponsorships, or awards for the Department of Public Utility. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. This one is kind of unique. If you'll recall, at the end of 2023, council gave us the authority to apply for and accept grants and other funding for projects and capital improvements for all divisions. What we are seeing and have seen is that there are other possible awards that aren't grants available, and they're calling them prizes. I know, but there are entities, especially in that cybersecurity world and where there is no contractual obligation, they just want to award prizes. And we've seen it enough times to think with, again, notifying council or the same amendment you probably made to the grants ordinance, we're looking at just to consider prizes. Prizes and gifts, materials, or services.
So, Director, 121.05 of the charter, right, authorizes each director to accept up to $10,000. And I think only the Director of Health is above the $10,000 mark. So why does the Department of Public Utility need more than the $10,000 without the authorization?
So the last prize that we saw was $50,000 up to $300,000, which we were precluded from seeking.
Because you can only get a $10,000
Correct.
one. Even with notification of the clerk?
Correct.
How does that work? So we have the ordinance, it's up to $10,000. If it exceeds $10,000, you would have to come back to us for
I'd have to come and get an individual piece of legislation.
every single time.
That's correct.
How many of these a year do you think you go for?
We've seen, Chairman, we've seen 2 in the last 6 months. Again, we didn't anticipate a prize or a gift being available to our customers, but if it continues, we want to be able to do it. If it's $15,000, $50,000, or $300,000, just like the grants.
Right, so if it's up to $10,000, all you have to do is notify the clerk, correct?
That's correct.
If it's over $10,000, you need legislation.
That's correct.
Are you saying, and you're not asking, excuse me, and you're not asking for a cap here?
You can cap it. I don't know what the cap would be, Chairman. Again, if we are continually
Right, because-
encouraged by council to seek every dollar we can.
Right.
I like to try to follow the rules, and so I don't want to bypass an opportunity for something called a prize, because I'm reading the ordinance
Right,
16,
instead of saying. give-
12/32/2023, that was specific to grants.
Right. All right, Councilman Polensek, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues, to the director, give me an example. Give us some type of example.
Yeah, the best example that was this, a cybersecurity training with a value of $50,000 for the first round, but then if you participated in the following years, it would go up to, say, $300,000, because, you know, there has to be a value associated with something that we're applying for, right?
And where would that have come from? Who made that offer, or that?
It was a it was an entity affiliated with the federal government.
Okay. So it wasn't
I can't
from-
remember the name, right.
So it wasn't from Joe Fabich
Joe
company? No,
Fabis did not
okay,
offer us
okay.
$300,000.
Okay, right. Okay.
It was a offshoot of like the Department of Energy, is
Okay.
my recollection.
So that's the last one you can recall?
Yes.
And then prior to that, would you have any recollection?
I know that it was brought to my attention, and then we look at it, and it was, if we don't have the opportunity to apply, then we don't. Commissioner, we did have an opportunity for another entity. The NEORSD has pipe left over from one of their major projects that, in order to take that, we would have to come for an individual piece of legislation.
So donation of pipe, you would, if it was over 10,000, you'd have to come back to us?
Correct.
Okay. And you're just concerned about the delay that would take in coming back for legislative authority, or what?
As similar to the grants, we are concerned that we are continually encouraged to seek every opportunity for additional creative funding that we can.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, based on that explanation, I would have no problem supporting this, but I would ask that there be an amendment, that there would be a reporting back to council as it pertains to what was accepted, and that be on a quarterly basis.
If I could, Chairman, this is how the existing contract or codified reads. Just to try to stay consistent.
Okay. Shall notify, okay. As long as that's in there, notification to the, not only to the clerk, but I want to just say to the chairman of the utility committee as well. So I would make that amendment.
I have
To
no
the
problem.
clerk and
law
to the
guy listed?
chairperson of the utilities committee. So I will make that motion to amend that besides the clerk of council being notified, the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee shall be notified as well.
Where are you making the amendment to?
To section F.
Yeah, this is the current
Right.
code. We're not here to amend the
No.
current code. We're here to
But then
add.
I will add this, that the clerk of council be notified along with the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee shall be notified
Okay.
of any acceptance of a gift.
Right, so, but this piece that we're looking for here,
Yes.
that the administration is looking for, is under 129.296. This that you want to amend is under 129.295.
No.
Chairman, if I could, by way of clarification, that language came from ordinance 1232/2023 specific to grants. My intention of bringing that to your attention was just that any amendments made to 129.296 relating to the acceptance of gifts
Right.
be consistent. That's all. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to confuse.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion again, that any gift accepted, unless it's dinner at the Lithuanian Community Center, that it be, that the clerk of council be notified, and that the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee be notified as well.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair,
We have a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to discuss.
Go ahead.
I think what we could do, if the law agrees, I think is we can take the entire 129.296 in front of us, turn the entirety of it into Section A, and then add Section B, which would be a complete replication of Section F from 129295. It would do the same thing to 129296 that we did to 129295.
All right, you're starting to lose me here.
Yeah, I'm a
So
little
see
lost
Section
there.
F right there?
Right.
That's 295.
Right.
Turn the entirety of Section 129296 that's on our tablets in front of us into A, and add B, that. So you're basically just take,
Oh, I see. So what you're doing, so you're saying it would be a second paragraph?
yeah,
there.
add a second paragraph. You can, I mean, maybe it doesn't need to be A and B. You just
All right,
add-
okay, so
You add the language
I
from F.
believe if I'm correct, you're adding, Councilman Polensek, your amendment is to be in ordinance number 812-2024.
Yes.
Right? After section 1, it should read, "The Director of Public Utilities shall notify the council through its clerk, of any funds accepted under the authority of this section on receipt of each award."
And I would only add the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee as well.
So it would read, "The Director of Public Utilities shall notify this council, the chairman or chairperson of Public Utilities through its clerk, and any funds accepted under the authority of this section on
Yes,
receipt of
sir.
each award." You got that, Director? Does that make sense?
Well, is there a law director?
No, I know,
You gotta
I'm
talk to
just saying.
Vishnu,
Okay.
Chairman.
But does
I'm
what
good,
does what we're
yes.
doing?
It makes sense, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr.
Through the chair, may I please clarify, are we adding that language to 129296, or we're transposing it like Councilman Hirsch said? Or am I adding the notification language under the paragraph provided? Is that what the consensus?
Mr. Chair, yes, I'm proposing that we add the language to 129.296.
I'm asking if that's. what you
Yes.
like.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So then, under 129296, it will read, "The Director of Public Utilities shall notify this council through its clerk, the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee, of any funds accepted under the authority of."
I want, and the chairman of the committee.
Yeah,
Chairman of the
he's got
committee.
that.
Okay. I'm fine with that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any further discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
I have at it.
Mr. Chair to the Director. For amounts over 10,000, are you currently required to bring forth separate legislation in order to accept or in order to seek? Can you apply for a grant that's over 10,000 without our approval, and then if you get it, come to us? Or do you have to come to us and say, "May I apply for this"?
I've heard it both ways through the chairman to the council member. So that's what I'm seeking to clarify by way of ordinance.
Okay.
Have I? Yes.
Okay. So this would allow, through the chair, your department to seek any award, grant, or prize in any amount, and simply notify us if you receive it.
That's correct, through the chairman of the council member.
I understand. Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry. It's weird. Right.
All right, any further discussion on that amendment? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, one other thing, Director, with this piece of legislation. I think this council believes that you're a extremely honorable individual, and I know you personally, that you're not going to do anything. However, we don't know who's always going to be sitting in these chairs.
Agree.
Okay, so I don't know if I want to leave this open-ended, right? So would anybody have an amendment on, for a period of time?
I think we should offer an amendment. Mr. Chair, my question for you would be where to insert the amendment in the ordinance language. Okay, so we are adding to, I would like to make an amendment, Mr. Chair. Let's see here.
period not to exceed 5 years, and then in 5 years, if this is still going on, you can just come back to it.
Okay, so we would be amending the summary language at an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances by enacting new section 129.296 relating to the acceptance of gifts, sponsorships, or awards for the Department of Public Utilities, comma, for a period not to exceed 5 years. I would like to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second? All right, we got a second. Any discussion? All right, no discussion.
Through the chair, excuse me if I may. If you're putting a limitation of 5 years in the codified ordinances, are you thinking of making this as a special enacted ordinance? It's not actually, it's just for your consideration. You're putting a time limit, this goes permanently to the codified ordinances. From what I see, there's no time limit on any of the other sections under this. So for your consideration, would you want this to be an especially enacted ordinance with that time limit?
Well, yeah, we would have to, but
It's just for your
and we want to do this because we don't know who's always going to be sitting in these seats, and we don't know, I mean, we're giving the Director of Public Utilities right now the authority to accept anything, right? So I don't need, Elon Musk coming in and dropping a Tesla on whoever our Department of Public Utilities director is, and him have the authority through the codified ordinance to accept it, right? Now, we know that's not going to happen, but we want to be able to monitor this somehow, at least, every 5 years. So we'll say in 5 years, when this sunsets, right, they can come back. Do we need to continue to go? Is it going okay? Yada, yada, yada. It's just, I think we need to protect this from anybody in the future. Again, if we leave this alone, it could be another 100 years, and whoever the Director of Public Utility is in 30 years could be getting $40,000 cash every 3 months, and it's legal, right? So somehow we want to do this on a trial run, and I'm not saying nobody's paying Marty $40,000, don't get me wrong, especially every 3 months. So somehow, however we have to do this, somehow we want to make sure that in 5 years, it's got to come back up for renewal or something.
Thank you, Chair. So the amendment was to the summary. I believe for it to have that impact, what I think the committee is intending is for it to state the Director of Public Utilities is authorized for a period not to exceed 5 years within the body.
Okay.
Correct.
Would that meet your intention?
Yes.
Okay, then I will modify
Go ahead.
Yes, please. if that's-
I will rescind that motion to make the amendment as explained previously, and I will make a new motion to amend under amendment to Ordinance 812, 2024, under Section 1, Section 129.26, to read, "The Director of Public Utilities for a period not to exceed."
In fact, I would say it would have to be effective 1/1 of 2025 for a period not to exceed 5 years. Correct?
Or for a period of 5 years? Or are you giving this 5 years?
I just threw 5 years out there. I don't know.
To our attorney, can you share your language one more time? It made sense when you said it.
I just inserted after the Director of Public Utilities is authorized for a period not to exceed 5 years.
Okay. So motion to amend as follows. The Director of Public Utilities is authorized, insert, for a period not to exceed 5 years to accept gifts, sponsorships, et cetera.
Yes, if that meets your intention, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that does. I mean, it gives the Department of Public Utilities the ability to receive these newly formed prizes but it also is very broad in that we don't want to make sure that any Director of Public Utility 50 years from now or 60 years from now isn't lying in his pockets because he or she is the Director of Public Utilities. So I think sunsetting this is the right thing to do. And then if it's working out, right, and and 5 years from now, they can just come back to us and we can just extend it again.
And then, sorry, through the chair, to add another wrinkle, because this is codified, it would be for a period not to exceed 5 years from the date of this amendment.
From January 1st, 2020, effective, is that, you got anything?
Or if you'd like to insert it.
Effective January 1, 2025.
Okay, so through our chair, the amendment would read, "The Director of Public Utilities is authorized for," I lost it again. For a period not to exceed 5 years, effective January 1, 2025. Okay.
All right, you got that? Okay.
So we've made the motion.
So the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Ordinance number 812, 2024, as amended, stands approved. Please sign up.
Thanks, Commish.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Director, that concludes the legislative portion of the meeting. We're now going into our second reading of our second hearing on the CPP rate study. And just so the committee knows, it's, do I have to read it in again? Do you know? Is it 9:57?
It hasn't been read in.
Hasn't
You
been read
didn't
in?
read in last time. It was discussion. Do you need it?
No, I have it on the tab. All right. Ordinance number 957, 2024, by council members Casey and Griffin, by departmental request to amend various sections of Chapter 523 as amended by various ordinances to repeal Section 523.021 and to enact new sections 523.0491, 523.066, 523.067, 523.28, and 523.29, all relating to rules and rates for electricity charges for the Division of Cleveland Public Power. We did have a presentation on this piece at our last hearing. Today, there's follow-up. There were questions asked at the table in regards to this, so there's some follow-up that the administration is doing. We're doing that through this. And then next Thursday is when we will take the official vote on the rate studies, but we wanted to make sure, in the meantime, anybody who wanted their public meeting, I think we have five public meetings?
Including tonight.
What's tonight?
Ward 1, I think. It's on the calendar.
All right, so it'll be 5, including tonight, out in Ward 1. So I know we were out in Councilman, did they go out to you, Councilman Bishop? Okay. Councilman Polenzic's ward, Councilman Starr, Harsh, Gray, and then Jones will be tonight.
Mr. Chairman, on that point,
Yes, sir.
I do have a meeting this coming Tuesday.
This upcoming Tuesday?
Yes, 6 o'clock.
Okay, so we can get out there this upcoming Tuesday. If you could add it to the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
This upcoming Tuesday, then, we'll be out in Ward 2 as
Yeah.
well. This covers the majority of the CPP coverage area. There was no sense going out to Ward 17 when there's 0 customers or anything like that. So I think that the Cleveland Public Power is doing its due diligence on taking this on the road. And I think the feedback that, at least at the ones that I've been at, have been positive. I think it's been a good thing that we've taken this to the community. So with that being said, Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. As you appropriately outlined, we have been busy out at a number of community meetings. We have welcomed the opportunity to talk about the important work of Cleveland Public Power. I thought they were all very well attended, very good feedback, very positive interactions, which is why we exist, right? I mean, that's kind of why there is a municipal utility, is to have those opportunities. So it has been a very, very pleasant exercise, and we look forward to continuing it as council wishes. That's why we exist. But my understanding is the intention of this was to respond to a number of requests that had come at the first hearing and then through the public community meetings and some by way of writing. So the Commissioner and CFO Troy have worked up a PowerPoint. I will then pass it over to Commissioner Danielson and CFO Troy to run through a quick presentation. And of course, always happy to answer any questions. But with that, I will, Commish.
All right. Thank you and good morning. Thank you for having us back. Today I'll be reviewing our capital investments in more detail, starting with the different categories of our grid, then looking at improvements that impact our overall service, as well as looking into the future. So starting off, this diagram may look familiar, partly because it is useful for discussing power interruptions, but it's also useful for understanding where it is that we invest. From left to right on this diagram, it's essentially a scale of high voltage to lower voltage. It's also a scale from very expensive to still pretty expensive. In reality, it's much more complex than this. I'll try to keep it as straightforward as possible. Just keep in mind that the true complexities do contribute and are an important part of the cost of maintenance and our overall investment. So today, starting first on the left-hand side with transmission and substations, I just want to say they are essential to our overall distribution grid reliability, and each piece affects the highest number of customers. So looking at substations, first a quick explanation of what a substation actually is. At its simplest, the substation is essentially the same as a transformer that you might see on top of a pole. That is, high voltage goes in, lower voltage comes out. There are some additional very important layers for each substation. There's protective equipment that can almost instantly cut power if a fault is detected or to prevent overloading. There are various instruments that measure, monitor, communicate the status of those transformers in the substation. Those instruments will generally be inside of a building, and it's all wrapped in, say, a fence for physical security. There are also communications paths for all of that information, and those comms are, of course, incorporate cybersecurity. So again, substations are in some ways just about transforming voltage, but they incorporate into the electric grid a lot of different layers that are essential to our operations. So on to the list. That Hayden substation is it's a smaller substation, but it was significantly damaged by weather, both the transformer and the building. Nearly everything needed to be rebuilt, even the lateral pole across the street that was affected. The West 41st substation, on the other hand, is significantly larger, so this is not a complete rebuild of the substation, but it is an improvement that's internal to the substation itself. So generally, our high voltage transmission is 138,000 volts or 138 kV. This is an important transformer and part of the substation to integrate with our 69 kV part of our transmission grid. So this includes the installation of a new transformer. They can automatically switch feeds. This install includes new cabling and protective equipment. As you might imagine, trying to do this and upgrading a large substation like this while keeping it powered, keeping it energized, is a significant, complicated feat of engineering and construction. So those are some of the larger recent projects. There is a constant effort to maintain each substation. So RTUs, remote terminal units, they're an important part of the layers that go into the substation, and right now we're working on upgrading RTUs at all of our high voltage transmission substations. What is an RTU? Why do we care? So if any of you might remember what SCADA stands for, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, the Remote Terminal Unit, or RTU, is that local piece inside the substation that monitors and consolidates all the information for that substation and hands it off to the comms network that then goes back and brings it into that central SCADA system, or that central SCADA piece. And we are also working on replacing the comms paths just to improve all of the reliability associated to that network. And more on SCADA in a couple of minutes. Finally, general maintenance includes everything from breakers, interrupters, relays, even conductor cleaning. One of the lesser known secrets of owning a substation is that cleaning bird poo off of everything is an essential part of our maintenance. So that'll be one of the contracts that you see out here too. Okay, back to our handy diagram. On the other side of substations, distribution lines and transformers. It's an important piece to understand that by volume, this is the vast majority of our grid. So it's, in comparison, this is 900 miles, give or take, compared to about 50 miles for the high voltage transmission. It's wires, it's transformers that step down that voltage from primary to secondary distribution, and then the secondary distribution itself. So I mentioned that the high voltage transmission includes 138,000 volts or 138 kV and 69 kV. This, the primary distribution lines for our grid, that's essentially three different types: 13.8 kV, 11 kV or 12 kV, and 2.4 kV. So seamlessly meshing all of that together is its own part of that complexity and challenge. And then finally, of course, there's the secondary distribution lines. That's pretty much what connects to your house, so that's generally 120 or 240. Sometimes that secondary is 480 kV. They're not kV, just 480 volts as well. So distribution, there's a significant number associated to that investment. What goes into it? It's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of metal. Metal is expensive. So each year we install between 150 and 200,000 feet of overhead wire, between 250 and 500 poles, both wood and fiberglass, close to 200 transformers, and then there's a significant piece in the underground as well, which anything underground has its pros and cons, but is more labor intensive, certainly. So there's about 50,000 feet of underground cable that goes in there, along with a handful of vaults and transformers, numerous switches and disconnects, all part of the underground. So individual projects on this side, they tend to not be as large or as capital intensive as on the transmission side, but in aggregate, it's a lot of labor, it's a lot of materials, and its own very significant cost. So back to this diagram. Towards the tail end of distribution is essentially endpoint delivery, and that's where the secondary distribution delivers power through equipment closest to and most visible to our customers. So here I'm also including the equipment that our crews do use to maintain the grid, hence the little truck that we've added to this graphic. So in terms of investment for this endpoint delivery, it includes our streetlights, our meters, meter bases, heavy equipment that we use to maintain it. Majority of our streetlights have been upgraded to LED. We recently replaced between 1,000 and 2,000 of them each year out of that more than 60,000 streetlights that we have. So remember, I just mentioned we do have some 480 volt infrastructure. That part of our secondary distribution introduced some complexities to the LED upgrade project. Happy to report that after working with that vendor, going through more than a few rounds of iterations to resolve issues with the 480 secondary distribution and the LED lights, that it did ship, recently passed customs, so those 5,000 lights I expect to get into the city of Cleveland relatively soon. Of course, then we still need to install them. All right, so with around 73,000 customers comes around 73,000 meters. Each of those meters costs between about $40 and a couple $100, so a significant investment there. And of course, as I mentioned, maintaining this sizable distribution grid requires vehicles of all types. So line trucks, dump trucks, vans, different types of line trucks, all of those vehicle costs have increased dramatically. Recently, I budgeted $415,000 for a derrick truck. Derrick truck is essentially one that helps us set poles. We have to set and reset too many of those. But anyway, so $415,000 for that truck is what we budgeted. The actual quote came in at $521,000. So it just has kept going up. Thankfully, we do have, our service centers have an excellent team of mechanics. They help keep our fleet operational and on the road, even as that fleet does age. Okay, last time we're back to this diagram. You'll see the box around essentially everything now. That's because parts of our infrastructure, although can be divided up, there are parts that many investments just impact the whole thing. So some examples of that and more recent system-wide improvements include GIS, CityWorks, and SCADA. GIS entails really a constant effort to incorporate our assets and infrastructure. It's just one of those things that helps a little bit with almost everything, including identifying and developing grid upgrades. In turn, that GIS integrates with and in some ways is the underlying layer for CityWorks, which we transitioned to this year. CityWorks, then we use every day to manage work orders and service requests. Finally, you've heard about supervisory control and data acquisition once or twice already. We are nearing completion of a major upgrade to our transmission SCADA system. So while GIS, for example, shows the physical status and geography of our equipment, the SCADA system shows the electric status and relationship of our electric infrastructure. So this system is a requirement for operation of our transmission network. It includes new servers, networking hardware, software, communications paths. One of our transmission operators using this system can then see and adjust voltages at its substation, energize or de-energize transmission lines, respond to emergencies, and coordinate with the bulk electric system. So SCADA is essential to operating our vital transmission lines and the interconnections. Future investments that are in varying degrees of planning and funding include, first, the distribution SCADA. This, of course, is similar to the transmission SCADA with a different emphasis. It will serve as a data backbone, incorporating live information about our grid, but at a much more widespread level, all into one spot, allowing for improved analysis, incident response, and energy routing. Distribution SCADA, in turn, will go a long way towards enabling increased grid sectionalizing. So sectionalizing will break the grid down into smaller pieces, so when an event does occur, there's a power interruption, fewer people will be affected, and response times, in turn, will be reduced. Sectionalizing isn't a discrete project, it's more of a constant, ongoing effort to upgrade our system. Then advanced meter infrastructure will offer real-time, bidirectional communications with our meters. One of the features there that I'm most excited about is that it will also enable the ability to proactively communicate directly with those that are affected by power interruptions. So we will know when that customer has lost power and can communicate with them about it. I already mentioned some work that we've done on our substations. Simply put, more is needed. They are our key assets. Many of them are aging assets, and they need various components proactively renewed, replaced to ensure high reliability. We're also partnering with local organizations to identify and pursue grant opportunities, some that we just talked about, most recently for clean local generation, and that will also reduce the cost of power supply. We've already been awarded a sizable grant from the EPA to turn some of our old local landfills into solar generation assets for the benefit of our community. In terms of customer growth, we do actively work to increase the number of customers that can benefit from Cleveland Public Power. CPP is collaborating with the city's Economic Development Department to promote, I would say, amazing new opportunities in the city for development, incorporating CPP, and then also to ensure that existing businesses do have their power supply needs met. Our sales team works directly with local businesses, residents, and developers. They identify targeted areas where we can expand our footprint and also opportunities for growth where we already have infrastructure. I already mentioned solar generation, but there are also benefits to CPP's opportunity for growth that come with that as well, including providing opportunities for new and improved distribution infrastructure to accommodate it, and then those reduced power supply costs as well. Finally, and in combination with expanding our grid, the investments that we make to improve our reliability are essential both for customer retention and for recruitment. So we are prioritizing our electric power reliability. All right, so Cleveland Public Power was formed for this city, and serving Cleveland residents and businesses is our top and only priority. That's why we've undertaken capital projects to improve service and reliability. Continuing to improve this service and reliability is exactly what we need to do, while we grow to ensure more residents and businesses have the opportunity to receive service from Cleveland Public Power. So that's what I have for today. Turn it back over to the director or chairman.
No, thank you again. Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks to the committee and the chairman for continuing the conversation about this important asset and what our plans are for the future, and why we are currently seeking support for Ordinance 957, 2024. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, I have seen this and heard this a number of times, so I'm going to leave time for my colleagues. Councilwoman Spencer?
Thank you, Chairman Casey. Thank you for coming prepared with this presentation. I wanted to ask about the big picture of the capital plan. I didn't do the math quickly enough, but okay, maybe somewhere nearing about 60 million is the ballpark of what we're looking at through the chair. Over what period of time are these capital improvements anticipated? What is the time frame?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the capital improvements that were described were from 2020 through 2024. And then the look forward is over the next 5 years so through 2029 is what's expected.
So then through the chair, some of what was presented has already been completed and some is still to be completed over the next 5 years?
So, Chairman of the council member, one of the written questions from council was, what have you spent the money on that council's approved in the budget, and then what's the plan forward? So we tried to put a story together with the presentation outlining specific dollar amounts that have been done, significant improvements, but then most importantly, why we're seeking the increase and what we plan to do with it.
Okay, I'm nearly there. So of what was presented, is it easy to understand what has been done versus what has not? Or how would I understand the completed versus
10.8.
planned?
So flipping back to through the slides, each of those diagrams followed by its own section, the dollar amounts under that title, that's money that is a current capital investment that has already been expended. And then moving forward to future investments, that's what we need capital funding for.
Okay, thank you. So then through the chair, You're the chair. Oh, I'm the chair. Okay, through myself. Is there a ballpark? So we've completed roughly 60 million in key capital improvements. Just out of curiosity, do we have an order of magnitude for the future investments?
So, to the chair, Yes, and a lot of that goes to the facility assessment that was completed in late 2022, early 2023, and that called for a short-term capital improvement of, I think it was
$78 million.
$78 million over the short-term capital, and then a much bigger number over the long term. But incrementally, what we're hoping to do is, in this ordinance, is to increase it from approximately,
In 2024, the capital line is about $5 million, and in 2025, we are expecting, if approved by council, we are expecting to request about $7 million for the capital in 2025. And in 2026, a little less than 10 million.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you. That's very helpful. I also wanted to make sure solar is mentioned a couple of times in the presentation, and I really want to make sure there's a high degree of interest in solar in Ward 15. I get questions about it often, so I want to make sure I am walking away from this hearing with an ability to explain to the public how CPP is part of that. So can you, through the chair, I'm sorry to ask for repetition, but first question related to solar is, can we again explain what this, on this current slide, what is solar generation grants?
so to our current customers, right, that's, I think they're inquiring, if I'm understanding, on their homes, right, their own solar generation. So we do work closely with our current customers. If they wish to have solar, we are very supportive by way of the metering aspects of it, and any credits that need to be carried over. Say they produce more than they consume in a given very sunny month. But what we're talking about here on page 11 with the grants and what the commissioner had testified to earlier is that we did recently were awarded through the US EPA a significant opportunity to develop solar. And it is our intention, once we have full understanding of the terms and conditions of that grant, to comply with it and develop our own renewable energy resource. And what, as the commissioner said, and he can certainly welcome to, but that would be a direct benefit to all of our customers.
Through the chair, who gets the credit for seeking and applying for and getting this grant?
Commissioner.
Okay, great.
Through the chair, it is a very large group of people, including within the community itself.
So this would have been something that the EPA put out as a grant opportunity, a notice of funding, something like that, and we replied. Is that the case?
Yeah, so earlier this year, about $7 billion across the country through the US EPA for renewable energy, specifically solar, and a number of those, the project that was submitted on behalf, or included Cleveland Public Power, also included the city of Painesville and the county in our award, but now we're working out the details of the terms and conditions to make sure that whatever we do benefits our customer. I mean, that's kind of why we exist, but council will more than be aware of the program. We have a number of legislative steps we anticipate as we digest the terms and conditions.
Got it. And it's probably not that important, but I would just be curious to know, is there a specific name for this federal grant? Is it, it's okay. Just curious, but it's an EPA.
Through the chair, it's
Our prize?
It's CPRG, and I cannot remember right now what CPRG stands for.
Okay.
But it's the EPA Environmental Protection Agency. Yep.
Prize.
Okay.
This is a grant.
Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then the next slide, under customer growth, it again references solar generation grants. And I want to make sure, again, I'm really understanding the point that is being made here through the chair.
Commissioner.
Through the chair, for example, one of those sites is located in a community, so it's on a former, I guess it's still a landfill, a capped landfill. When that landfill then gets covered with solar panels, we need to connect it to our grid. So part of what is essential just for connecting that new solar generation is running new wires. So that gives us the opportunity to, while we are also connecting that generation, to upgrade our distribution grid that connects from there to our substation. So that's essentially what that is it's a new opportunity to run new lines in support of the project, but also to just plain, for any of the customers in the area, that means new infrastructure.
Great, and so this will be coming back to council most likely in terms of the exact locations for where this would go. All right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Gosh, it's, worth noting that we currently have a federal government that believes that climate change is real and we need alternative sources of energy. May that remain the case, that our leaders use science in their decision-making. Okay. I think that concludes my questions. I'll let you know if I want to jump back on. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilman Polensek?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director, to the commissioner, and to the staff that is here. Obviously, having the largest customer base in the city in the Collinwood, North Shore, Collinwood, Nottingham, Collinwood Village area in East Glenville, I'm concerned greatly about the condition of the system historically. And so when I look at the overall condition, and the greater Collinwood system is one of the oldest in CPP, because you acquired the system from then Collinwood Village in 1910, I believe it was, 1910, 1911. And so I'm concerned about the condition and reliability, as the commissioner and the director knows, because we've had ongoing issues with power outages and things that have happened even in very good weather. So when I'm looking at the substations, some of the substations look like they're abandoned properties, like the one on Waterloo Road. It's an embarrassment what it looks like. And I've heard nothing to tell me in writing what you're going to do to upgrade the system within the greater Collinwood community. We know there's that issue with that large pole on Holmes Avenue that was burnt. The issue with the substations again. Then just ongoing maintenance with the substations, the not cutting of the grass and high weeds. But the overall reliability of the system in Greater Collinwood has concerned me greatly as we go forward. So I need to hear something. Not only do I need to hear something, I need to see something in writing. What you're going to do to address the conditions of the substations. All of them, they look deplorable. They haven't been maintained. The buildings, the structures have not been maintained. And so I understand we've got to keep this system viable, and we need upgrades, we need equipment, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not questioning that. But you're asking me as a member of this committee to support an increase in the rates, and I've got to have assurances that the ongoing issues that I've experienced as a councilman representing that area, with the ongoing issues with reliability, with the conditions of the facilities, is going to be addressed. And then on your slide, I'm going to find it right here, on your PowerPoint, and I don't know what page, I don't see a page, well, I think it might be 37, right-hand corner, where it says 2023 residential rate comparisons. Your proposed rate comparisons for 2025 and beyond, where would those stack up against the other municipalities that have power systems in the state of Ohio? Do you have any indication where our rates?
So, Chairman, to the council member, slide 37 from the the last hearing, the original presentation to council was comparable cities in Ohio, and it had CPP's
present rate,
current rate,
right.
Correct.
Where would the proposed new rate increase put us?
Well, it would be 6% more than that. We can certainly get that for you.
Yeah,
A graph, if again, we don't want to assume, support. So we wanted to give exactly how it is on the PUCO website.
Yes.
I can do the math, not right now, not
Okay.
right here, and get a new graph to you.
I'd like to see that, Mr. Chairman. And then again, going back to my original comments as it pertains to the reliability in the greater Collinwood area, as the commissioner knows and as the director knows, so often I get these outages with no bad weather, like I had last week in the community. So someone needs to tell me, what is the long-term game plan, upgrade the system in Greater Collinwood to address the
Chairman.
conditions of the substations, to address the issues with the ongoing tree trimming issues, et cetera, et cetera?
Chairman of the council members, so the conditions of the substations is a concern of ours from an image standpoint,
Right.
but it has nothing to do with reliability. We know we need to do better with grass cutting. We have, a contract has fallen short in our maintenance by way of grass cutting.
Yes.
We do not immediately anticipate increasing the budget for tree trimming in the greater Collinwood area or throughout our service area, but it is something we continually look at. $1 million is a lot, or $750,000 a year right now, with current capacity issues and some of the concerns that we have in some neighborhoods with the attention given to the trees.
Yes.
So we're going to continue that conversation, but as the commissioner outlined in today's presentation, all of the efforts are to increase reliability throughout the entire system. And we know that we've had issues in Collinwood. We've also had issues in all of the neighborhoods of it is an imperfect science that we're hoping to do better job
Yes.
at maintaining. And that's the entire focus of this ordinance.
Okay, well, again, I want to say this. Somebody's going to have to tell me what they're going to do with those substations. They're an embarrassment. I got to tell you, they're an embarrassment. Go look at the one on Waterloo Road. You swear it's abandoned, derelict building, the condition of it. And see, that's just not acceptable to me. I expect city buildings to be maintained. I don't expect the residents to say, or businesses on Waterloo say, what is this? How come the city won't maintain anything? And so I'm going to wait to get something back from you explaining your action on the substations, and then to address some of these long-term issues that I've been talking about as it pertains to reliability in the community. I want a strong Cleveland Public Power system. I walk the streets. I'm the only one here that walked the streets that's left to save Cleveland Public Power with some of my colleagues then. We worked hard. There was a lot of animosity, a lot of division within the body, but we worked hard to save this system. And I want to make sure, Mr. Chairman, that what is being proposed to us, to this body, makes sense, is based on the needs of the system, and the 6% increase, obviously that's higher than the cost of living. So the justification for that, briefly explain why not a cost of living increase.
Through the
Whoever
chairman-
can do that.
Through the chairman to the council member, as we talked about in your community meeting, the fiscal
Yes.
pressures on the utility and the difference today from 30, 40 years ago, right, are significant. And the costs associated with the wages and benefits and what
Yes.
we pay our employees, how we attract and retain highly qualified and employees, but then the cost of materials and the federal oversight are greater than ever. Not to mention what we talked about extensively at all the hearings is the debt service coverage that we are required to meet in 2025, because we have exhausted all financial avenues of refinancing, retiring. It's a reality that we owe $2 million more in debt in 2025, and there are no opportunities to push that out any further. So those costs brought us here today. It is not something we take lightly. We know we need to do better by way of cutting the grass. We know we need to do better by way of answering the phone. We know we need to do better by way of response to an outage. We can't do that without additional funds, and we're trying to be as responsible, delicate, and considerate as we can be in this 6% increase next year. And
Okay.
again, our focus is going to be on conservation and what our customers can do to reduce the energy burden in their home and reduce that bill. That's by way of thermostat control, high-efficiency appliances, all those things that an individual customer can do to better manage the burden of the utilities in that residence.
Okay.
So I don't know what else I can say about the greater Collinwood area. I do know that we are trying to do a better job for our customers in every community of the city of Cleveland.
Okay. My last question, Mr. Chairman, to the director and to his team. Where are we with accounts receivable?
Outstanding accounts receivable overall is about $14 million. Of that, about $5 million of it is over 180 days.
So what is the efforts being undertaken to collect debt?
So we have gotten back to the severance process.
Okay.
We have augmented collection staff, call center staff at CPP. A lot of cross-training is going involved. Has been involved in getting all hands on deck to try to answer the calls and get those customers in a payment arrangement to maintain service. At the end of the day, the last thing we want to do is cut service, but in some instances, when the arrearage gets to be too much, we have to do it. And unfortunately, those account receivables numbers that CFO Troy just outlined, we're back to almost pre-pandemic. So those are not, they're big numbers. We're not happy about the numbers, but that is the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And it's not anywhere out of operational normalcy. And I don't say, again, I don't take it lightly, but we do not have any other means at addressing than the termination of electric service.
Yes.
Which is the last resort in our world.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, to the director again, and to fiscal, the ARPA funds we allocated that residents could apply for who had outstanding debt, what's the status of that?
Through the chairman of the council member, the $2 million
Right.
that council allocated for the utilities amnesty program has been spent
All
entirely.
of it?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. So we had a greater demand than that?
Through the chairman of the council member, yes. I mean, there's always a demand. We're always looking for additional resources by way of HEAP expansion, LIWAP, through the federal government expansion on the water side.
Okay.
I will never say there's not a need. I
Right.
will say that the administration of those funds put a tremendous strain on our internal staff because
Okay.
we did it all internally. So if council finds another big pot of money, then let's have a conversation
Yeah.
before you pass the ordinance and see
Yeah.
if we can not have people's blood pressure go too high.
Yeah. I doubt if we will find a pot of money.
If you were,
Right.
that's the prerogative
Right.
of council.
I just want to make sure, because at virtually every meeting I'm at where rates come up and issues come up, I encourage everybody, if they're having a problem, to please undertake and establish a payment plan. I tell that to people all the time. Do not wait to the 11th hour when your power's about to be cut off that you call me and say, what am I to do at this point? Make a payment plan. Make an effort to pay something on your electric bill, your water bill, your sewer bill, et cetera, so you don't run into the difficulties, because it's been my experience that whether it be water or CPP, they attempt to work with the customers.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that I want to continue to stress. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to receiving something from the administration with regard to the condition of the substations out there and what action they're going to take, and then where we stand with the replacement of that massive pole on Holmes Avenue that services that entire Collinwood Village neighborhood that we had problems with during the storm. So I'll wait for that information, and I appreciate what has been provided to us. I appreciate the chairman's due diligence on this issue of trying to get to the roots, concerns and issues for the proposed increase in rates. And again, all of us here want to do the right thing. We just want to make sure that we are being transparent, that we're being responsible as it pertains to the impact upon our customer base. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Plonzik. And just two follow-ups on that. One, I want to thank the due diligence of the residents of Ward 8 with the amnesty program, because we had the most accounts. We helped the most people of any ward in the city. We helped more accounts in Ward 8.
I promoted it, Mr. Chairman.
And most money, the most money was spent in Ward 8 with the amnesty program
I
as well.
promoted it.
So we want to thank that.
Okay.
And I forgot the second thing that I was going to say. Anybody else have any questions? Got one additional question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to go back to, this is speaking to some aspirations that the enterprise has, and I just wanted to also, still looking at the customer growth slide, I really want to just take a moment to reemphasize the importance of the call center as we look at future growth of CPP, because I think that whether we like it or not, we are privy to this behind the scenes, if you will, information of all the good work that's going on. We understand the investments being made. We understand the commitment to service. But one bad interaction with a call center can absolutely color a customer's experience and their experience of that utility for a lengthy period of time. So I would just encourage that, just maybe it's more of a philosophical point as we talk about investing in CPP, investing in technology, investing in growth, that the call center continue to be front and center of the hopes and aspirations for what we're going to be investing in. And I don't know if that's going to need more dollars, but it's just an essential part of how we serve the public. So I wanted to make that point through the chair.
Agree.
Thank you. And just to the committee, just a reminder, tonight, Ward 1, right? Community meeting in Ward 1 regarding this. Next Tuesday in Ward 2. Next Thursday, we'll hear this again, and we'll take a vote on this on October 31st. And then November 7th is our operational review hearing. And before we go, Director, just regarding 626, 2024, I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, the council passed 632, 2024, which was a supplemental piece for 24.2 million, and 18 million of that was for radios. All right, is that where this $18 million is coming from, or is for 626?
Chairman, my recollection, that was a public safety piece to purchase the radios.
Okay.
So the only interaction that we would have is the interoperability the installation and operability of would be through the Office of Radio Communications, maintained by the Motorola contract.
Okay.
Envisioned by 6/26/2024. So the system itself will be maintained by 6/26/2024. That ordinance that council gave authority was public safety by them to work on this system.
Okay, so for when it comes to the Office of Radio Communications, which falls under utilities, right? Safety is buying their own radios.
Correct.
But then what is the role and responsibility of radio communication after they purchase them?
Install the radios,
Okay,
whatever they have to do to make sure it gets on the 800 megahertz system for the city of Cleveland, and then maintain the system. It's the same as the CPP's grid.
okay,
Right, so we maintain the system overall. 6/26/2024 allows us to do it with the help of Motorola, but Public Safety's radios talk through the 800 megahertz system.
okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing nothing, this Utilities Committee is adjourned until next Thursday at 10 a.m. Thank you.